was talking about interceptions, I wanted to put the AWACS here. I'm actually going to move it here. This is great if I'm defending up here. Yeah, it actually has some advantages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, it has some advantages in that I could do, well, I can't do joint missions with Navy and Honduras. By putting it here, though, I'm interdicting where the Nicaraguan airports are. And that means I can catch stuff as it comes up off out of the air. The negative part of it is Nicaragua, I'm within the Messiah range, so Nicaragua can interdict my planes. Which one do I want? That's a really good question, because they have more planes than I do. I think I'd rather keep the capacity back here where I first thought. I've got enough range to hit the front line of the battlefield, and I'm not going to be interdicted taking off. Once I get more carriers in play, well, we're definitely going to want to have 2 AWACS. You know, we'll have 2 AWACS on this coast. But once I have more carriers in play, and some Air Force and everything, I'll be able to push the envelope and begin to really start fighting the Nicaraguan Air Force. But right now, I think they still have air superiority. And I got all my things in the used boxes. Those have to move up. I didn't take care of that yet. Oops. I was looking at that in particular and caught up to it. It jumped over the end of turn stage. I had already handled much of that. But in the getting to the U.S. night naval bombardment, I was questioning, is it time to start, blowing things up down here? And I think the answer is no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to start putting pressure on Nicaragua, the scen site and stuff like that I could bombard. It wouldn't hurt, but maybe I need them for something else. And I always would rather delay my choices of non-reusable resources. In terms of supply now, for the Sandinistas, I do not see anything that looks bad. For the most part, I'm kind of dropping most of the optional rules in my head. That's not to say I might not apply them at some point during the game, but certainly that supply rule is just too painful to contemplate, and I'm not seeing much case where it would really apply. Maybe out in here, in the jungles here and everything, where the lines are a little too stretched, but it's just too much detail for a game that's already overburdened in details, and it doesn't seem to be adding much in any particular case. So I see why it's an optional rule. Some of the other optionals are, oh, this is some fancy toy, and I like fancy toys, Those are more appealing to me. I could have done this turn had I not succeeded in bombing both the airport and the AA, is I could do a guerrilla attack against one of them. I finally have an insurgency unit up there, but the planes took care of it without too much damage. So, not any actually. But in terms of the damage came to my units which fought. I gotta consider, wait a minute, do I want to rebuild a unit? I don't have a whole lot of reorg points. I'm gonna save them for real units. I might build up more. There's a lot of these question marks in there. They only take me out till turn 30 though, so maybe the snare is supposed to stop at turn 30, no matter what. I don't know. Again, if resources just cut off at some point, that essentially puts an end to operations in a lot of ways. Not as much as it does, again, in Gulf Strike, where supplies are one of the resources that you're dealing with. So, like, you have a numerical rating on a chart that tracks how many supplies you have, and each time you launch an attack or whatever, you spend supplies for it. And if you do a lot early in a scenario, you're out. And, a scenario like this where you're getting sort of what looks like a regular allotment and then it just stops. That's kind of weird. And I think I've pushed it up to the air missions, which is going to be complicated, more than it was last turn by the U.S. air units there. Although there are less Honduran air units, it's not significantly less. They still have their jet power to intervene. But the big deal is that there's carrier-based planes that are potent. I mean, let's just be honest here. An 8-point air-to-air combat on the F-14 with standoff capability, if I'm facing something kind of at all scary. There aren't a lot of them, but it's enough to scare the hell out of me and make me not want to try to figure out if I can get an air attack in under the protection of them. And again, the Allies have the advantage here. They get the reaction to the air strikes before they have to choose their own airstrikes. So they have sort of an overall air superiority initiative level, no matter what the scenario, which is just baked in. And I honestly don't know how reasonable that is. That's making certain assumptions about like U.S. support for some of these countries that doesn't really hold up in some of the historical scenarios, at least, even if it does for all the ones the game's really meant to apply to, which is that 1980s, 1990s era. So what's going on? Well, I chose again not to try to expand Femlin because they will just get counterinsurgency. Yes, it will take up bombers that could be striking Nicaraguan elements, but I don't want to expend my insurgency points when I think I may need them for more central concerns. Continuing to try to keep my pressure up on the Honduran front. That's the thing I gotta break. I don't want to go adventuring into El Salvador and increasing the tensions and getting the U.S. closer to the intervention level they're already at. I don't know. Increasing tensions is only good for the Soviets right now. But I also don't want to take an action that, the world would view poorly. Maybe there's some argument for invading Honduras. There's not yet any argument for invading El Salvador. They have not intervened, although they bombed us. Yeah, we got some argument, whatever. Probably not much for taking Costa Rica over. And what we see here is a movement to try to wipe out Arda. It's hard, though. There's not much real military capability down here. We're talking militia, garrison, whatever, and some insurgents. Not a lot of air power being committed down there or anything. Up here, just basically holding the line as much as I can. There's some danger I'm going to get cut off from supplies here. That'll suck. But yeah, my focus is still on trying to destroy the Honduran army and take some of those capitals. I ended up taking another city, which should be tracked over there. I don't know. All right, break time. Fortunately, my opinion with the air situation for the Nicaraguans is we got to take our lumps now, while they're not going to be so big. There's only going to be more U.S. air power coming onto the board. If we're going to make any gains against Honduras, it's now. And honestly, I don't think we can make our victory conditions, period, the end, full stop. Yes, we can offer, hey, we won, we took Costa Rica. And I don't think that can be taken away from us, but we can't even offer victory until we reach our conditions. One of the standard conditions. So, there's that. Now, the Costa Rica just accelerates the victory conditions. It makes it less likely that we'll be able to get an offer if we, reach the 90 victory points or whatever we're required to hit. Now, but anyhow, within that, for the smaller scale situation, I do believe I have to challenge the U.S. Carrier-based air and let them really hurt us. In addition to operations over on the edges. When that happens, etc., well, there's just more planes coming in at the end of this turn. So if I don't do it now, I may never get another chance. My air power may be essentially eliminated effectively, just because there's just so much coming in the next couple turns. Oh, that's not next turn. That's way out there. So yeah, the next carrier group's out here, I think. This is U.S. Air Force. Not pleasant, though. Not pleasant at all. What we did, which the Hondurans kind of allowed us as a mistake, is we chased the EW out of here. And that's important because this hex is not within 3 of our EW anymore. So I can actually contest this without any interception possibility. And that's actually a big deal because I can drop, a close air support 1 on there. Again, I've shifted my board here so I can start allocating resources. This is going to be a lot harder. We've got the Honduran Air Force still available. Okay, it can do something. But then we've also got the U.S. able to cover both of these hexes, and that's just problematic. Considering I think the best I can get on these 2 hexes is both 2 to 1s. I'm just a couple strength points off in cases. An attack helicopter would help a lot, but I can't afford to put that out there. That'll get shot. Unless I can, trick the U.S. and Hondurans to use up their planes, their significant strikes on taking down the air operations that I'm just going to do more naturally. I got to keep that in mind as the Allied player to prevent wasting my interception capability, because it won't take much to take down an attack helicopter. They've got a 2 defense, and they're only a stack, a couple steps. But if I let them able to slip in for free, I'm just screwed. Be a little careful. I don't know if I cheated. I don't think so, but I see a couple of these planes with exceedingly low movement ratios. 8 hex. These are some of their really old planes. What are they? Y-18s, those can't reach. We're talking about from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They cannot reach the front line any longer. And I'm going to either have to move them up if I want to use them, in which case they can't really combine, but I can use them for pickoffs like this, or rely on them more to get some air power facing the whatever the FDN or whatever is there. After conducting a couple air missions over here, dropping a +2 marker in there, dropping some other stuff, I've got an all-jet capable force moving here. This is trying to drop the +3 modifier, and it's got a whole bunch of bombardment factors that if it's ignored, it's going to bomb the shit out of some of the units there. Now this is basically a maximal air launch by Nicaragua. And we came close last time. This one is more significant, though. I think the U.S. has to respond. The problem, of course, is I think we'll be hitting with an alpha strike. The question is, do we use the A-10? Do we throw that into the fight? And I'll add up the potential air points and look to see if that goes in. But otherwise, I think we're doing an alpha strike, see what we can take down. It's going to be a close fight. The U.S. units are awesome. Another option would be to do a standoff attack. Jeez. It's just ugly. because I am not all that strong. Yeah. You know, I'm strong enough to take on most of the Nicaraguan Air Force, but I'm a little weaker than the whole Air Force as assembled. And by making this choice to just make a strike on here, yes, I'm going to be making that attack at kind of lower odds or whatever. I still will probably do okay. But, yeah. Ouch. US can probably limit this to a 1-to-1 attack with modifiers in my favor for EW back here, for airbase, for the AWACS. We've got a lot more, and EW accompanying, we've got a lot more electronic warfare on the board. I think it's worth challenging upright and throwing, what, the F-18s in to help out there. Even though the other option would be to do the standoff attack. I counted this whole thing up. It's 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 28, 34, 37, 38. 38 to 16 means a 2-to-1 or whatever. But 38 to 26 means a 1-to-1. So we'll get better odds. Now that may mean that the communists end up peeling off, you know, some of their fighter capability. They've got units that they would rather use as bombers and try to bomb some of the individual units as well. The U.S. gets initiative. They're going to force the Nicaraguans to be the attacker, giving a slight advantage there. Otherwise, we'd be attacking at 1-to-2, which is just not good. We got a bunch of modifiers on us. Communists have chosen 26 points to fight. The rest will be withheld as bombers. They're still possible targets. And intensity is quite high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to be above 13. 9, 10, 11, 12, yeah. The Soviets have 13 on their own. We're at 1-to-1. The modifiers add up to friendly AWACS is 2 for the US. EW or ground unit within 3. That brings us to 3. EW accompanying, we'll cancel that out with the one that the Soviets are bringing, or that the Nicaraguans are bringing with them. Air facility, that brings me up to +4. And that's all she wrote. I really should have an air base closer in to get me EW protection, but I put one up there and I stopped being able to coordinate with it as well. But yeah, not well prepared for anything ever. So we were at like +4. That's gonna likely really hurt the Nicaraguans. That's a 7. They're going to take 3 losses and have to retreat, or they take 6 losses. I'm not going to get my mission in if I don't take the enhanced losses. But if I take if I don't take the enhanced losses, I lose 3 steps for no advantage. If I take the enhanced losses, I take 6 steps, but maybe get to Gulfsigapa. I think I'm going to take the enhanced losses. I don't like it though, but the balance of air power is just going to shift so completely that I might as well grab what advantage I can at this point. I'm sure I got some crap I can damage. Planes destroyed. Another one damaged up here is the effect of the air combat. We got the +3 allocated, and we damaged 1 ground unit. And that's the net effect of that attack. Trying to figure out whether or not I can immediately base at an enemy airport, airstrip, because I seem to remember, so in the conventional game, air facilities are damaged when you move into them. And I think they're not really usable in that sense. Well, they're reduced capability. I think that requires demolitions now to be done in the intervention game, but looking for that, I ran into what I was looking for, which is the political considerations gave restrictions saying things like Honduras and El Salvador can't cooperate at all, can't enter each other's territory unless exempted by the scenario. But I actually found the indication that there was a limitation here in the selection, the random generation scenario in the selection, whatever. And that's in particular at preparedness 4, all units are mobilized. Salvadoran and Honduras units can enter each other's territory and support each other when attacking enemy units. Their air units cannot perform joint air missions, which is pretty close to what I had figured on. But it's nice to find the specifics laid out. Again, it's hard to, there's so many different interweaving threads in the game. It may have been a Herculean and impossible task to get everything linked together. The index is insufficient to do the job. That much I'll tell you. Still looking up that demolitions rule as to whether or not things are damaged, but I may just go with what I remember and land me some planes over here in Danley. I can only get a couple of planes at a time in a mission there, but I want to get an EW there because that's what hurt me, was not having one. Had I moved it this turn, it wouldn't do me any good. But I'm outside of range of any interception, so I can just move planes there. That wasn't the case earlier, so there might be a good reason for me not to have moved there already. And because our planes are going to be useless soon, we're launching another air attack into there. We don't have a 2-pointer here. I was kind of surprised. I thought we'd have a 2-point slow plane. In this case, we've got some jet cover, but for the most part, we're relying on a bunch of 2S fighters. We may take this opportunity to do a counter action if Honduras throws, which they probably will. Most of their Air Force will hope to try to contest this. We'll see what they put up in a reaction. They can't put too many planes. That's one of the problems, because I got a big stack over there, and that's all I got. I could actually use El Salvador's planes only. Nope, not within EW range, because the AWACS does not help me because it's U.S. Navy. I counted up my Honduran planes, and I've got about 8 points that could intercept. That's including some pretty iffy stuff, like slow planes that have decent counterinsurgency values. I think I'm going to pass and let the Nicaraguans get their strike in. I don't like doing that, but pretty soon the air advantage is going to be on my side, and all those planes will be able to perform missions that will cause problems to the Nicaraguans. Plus, I can use their bomb capability to drop things. I got a couple of jets that I would love to throw into this, but I just think I'd rather wait until the balance of power in the air changes more significantly than it has. We're at an interesting position here. That was largely ineffectual. I ended up getting the close air support marker, but that's it. And that has used up Nicaragua's Air Force. And now attack helicopters are required to move to rebase because I moved my infantry, my units, out of their hex. This is a problem. No big deal from here, but I still have, what, an A-10, an A-8, sorry, not A-10s, those are Air Force, sitting up here, which has a jet capability. Now, I don't know if I really want to engage the helicopter. It's stronger than I am, so I'll hold off. But if I had some real planes available there, they could screw with that capability. I only moved one hex because, among other things, there would be an air defense roll if there's an interception there. And I will do the same here. I do not want to attack this hex because that's within range. Yeah, not good. Okay, I think that's the end of my air missions. We don't have any reaction air missions, so we hit ground combat. The reaction air missions, remember, they're for U.S. Marine Corps, AV-8Bs and such, not, well, AV-8Bs in particular being able to do a quicker reaction than a helicopter defense would. Attack against this hex was extraordinarily successful. 2 hits with a retreat. That was enough. I couldn't ignore the retreat, so that's out of there, and that means the lines of retreat for this, for Tegucigalpa, have been cut. That is a real problem. Not as great a result, but getting attritional hits here and here that are helpful. In fact, the attack on Tegucigalpa was down here on this column. I've been around here for the most part. Didn't get a great roll, but I have a lot of pluses. The +3 ground support, insurgents. I think that's it. So it netted out with a +3 to the die roll, which was pretty good. I think that's it for attacks. Now I got to decide. Armored reserve is so hard to use effectively in this. The terrain's not great, and the main point that it seems to have is to move units to give air support because of Nicaraguan pairing up the anti-air support. Of course, you're probably stripping some other unit of it. A possible Soviet and Cuban air reinforcements, and they didn't make it again. Another shitty die roll. That's really going to skew things away from them. If I had gotten, the majority of these additional planes in. Where's this second turn? Jesus. No, this has to be third turn. First turn I got some. Second turn and third turn, I failed. I got most of them the first turn. Well, at least I got most of them the first turn, right? But this is the planes I got to work with for Nicaragua. Doing what movement we can. Harassment tactics up here. Try to destroy some of the holdings there. It just causes problems, It can't really hurt. There's not much. I can't operate from here over. So the heart of Honduras, I can't defend with these units. So all they can really do is put pressure on the Sandinistas in places the Sandinistas don't really care for this campaign. Arta is too weak to really do anything. Except, it can live on its own, but there's too much red stuff dealing with it already. For El Salvador, I feel like I have to destroy this before I can do much to help Honduras, because this could cause a lot of havoc within El Salvador itself. So I'm going to continue processing those attacks. This one is less important. I just have to cover, my bases and make sure that they're not. If they ooze out, I can take their fortification and cause them issues. But we are diverting some forces now into Honduras to help. Trying to create a line here. It's not a very good one. You can see I've got basically 2 special forces units actually there trying to hold the line there. Now it's not really too big a risk right now. Only insurgency units can get through there. So, I think the concentration is going to be to break that front line of Honduras, but it's not going to hold very long, and there isn't much left. There's El Salvador. I got a couple Mexicans coming in this turn, and then we got the Guatemalans up here. Other than that, well, Nicaragua used up all of its air power, so it basically has no capacity whatsoever to interdict any additional FDN placement. So at least there's that, Oh, I haven't done this guy yet. For air operations, I've been doing bombing runs. They have been doing shit. Some as far up on as the 10 column. I don't think I've damaged anything. I did 3 different bombing runs. I'm not daring put a close air support here. I've got one here that I can't use this powerful Navy plane to support El Salvador. directly, but I can go bomb a unit with it. There's almost no chance of it hitting anything. What's the penalty for? No, we don't want to. We don't want to hit in here. Yeah, I've hit these units. I gotta find me something I can shoot. I've hit all of these. Ground attacks were largely successful, but only moderately so. A couple hits on this, that's great. It's going to disappear next turn, whatever that matters. The main thing is, I don't know, there's an anti-aircraft there that made it hard to kill the units, but the units wouldn't be there if there wasn't an airport and an anti-air there that I was defending, so I kind of wasted the units and let them die. This much slower going, and conceivably, I could keep creating insurgents there, just spending insurgency points to try to keep it alive. That might make more sense than anything else, except that, like, I'm just not convinced that they're that valuable except as a delaying force. Whereas the same is really true with any of the insurgents. If things start going south for the Sandinistas, I kind of want the points for that, but maybe tying these guys up a little longer will be more valuable than anything else I can do. And it doesn't take a lot of commitment. The problem is anything I commit can be counter-insurgency, which would take away from some of these futile bombing runs that are being made. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, so you're going to burn my insurgency points, which might actually be valuable, whereas these bombing runs are pretty clearly very low odds. Like, anyway, that puts me to reinforcements, and I got a pile to bring on, including a bunch of aeroplanes. So that's the end of the turn. We got a couple U.S. air bases here in AWACS, which, boom. Look, Nicaragua just lost any capacity for air power in that area, basically. We've got an AWACS here, an AWACS there. We've got it so heavily covered. Yes, they can't coordinate, but now we've got a bunch of these F-16s, which again outgun the MiGs, even the Soviet MiGs. If I recall correctly, I don't see one in front of me. Let's see what these suckers look like. The MiG-27s are only 3 fighter power. You know, and those things are 6s. Yes, they're not the F-15s, but they're pretty damn close. I think the era of Sandinista air power being at all effective has just died. And there's just more and more U.S. stuff coming in. I noticed I forgot my Guatemalan plane that's up here. It's not going to do much for anyone, but I might be able to move it over to operate with the FDN, although honestly, I'm not sure they're able to cooperate with the FDN, so I'm not sure I want to look that up. They certainly can help Honduras or join the El Salvadorian Air Force somewhere more useful, but they're actually in range of the AWACS now, so they can join in to missions with the U.S. and the Hondurans. They just, you know, refuse to shift their command. And to tell you the truth, I think this is about the point where the game ends. I'm going to keep playing because, you know, everything structurally would say there's still game here. Well, if the U.S. doesn't come in with ground forces, I mean, the Sandinistas are going to be able to make some ground. There's no question of that. But they're not going to be able to conquer Honduras, I don't think. I think the air power is going to start really telling on them. The insurgency units are going to really start causing problems in this direction that they can't continue their attacks. And if the U.S. does bring in their forces, which I'm I'm torn on that. Hey, do I want to show that part of the game off? And of course, yes, but do I want to play more and more crap coming in? Probably not. And then, so I put it to what would the U.S. president be doing? And he knows. He's got, actually, I thought turns are 2 days each. Because War Powers Act is a 15-day trigger and it should be 30, or a 15-turn trigger and it should be 30 days. The War Powers Act problem is the real issue here. In 15 turns, can I essentially destroy the Nicaraguan army to the point where it's not going to recover and El Salvador and Honduras can be left on their own? I don't know. And if not, that opens up the different victory conditions for the FSLN, and they would be able to claim a fairly major victory if the U.S. comes in, beats the shit out of them, and the Sandinistas are still able to pretty much hold on to Nicaragua. So, where do you go? And then, of course, the game could go on forever, but the reinforcements only go for the first 30 turns, which feels weird to me in many ways. That is a matter of the scenario generation system. When you look at the other scenarios, they have fixed time lengths. Maybe I'm missing something in the rules. Maybe somebody will catch something. I got some COVID brain today for whatever reason. So, and had some sneezies. But, yeah. All right. Starting turn 4 here, we've got some rebuilds for Honduras that'll come in during the reinforcement phase. Yeah, I think. I'm not going to look it up. For the most part, this unit's out of supply now. We're just continuing pressure on the Honduran capital region, and beginning to set things up to fight Arda. But I ain't got much coming here. I really don't. I think I already moved whatever insurgents. Well, I got this guy. I probably want to get him in place. He's special forces. And then I'm gonna try extending these, I guess. It seems so pointless, I'm just taking away those bombardment points for a turn. But the delay factor is really the key here, I guess. To look up one thing, I haven't rolled for any of these. For the counterinsurgency, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an aircraft doesn't hit all the units creating a counterinsurgency. You have to target each unit separately with a mission. So, actually, you might be able to do multiple missions in one hex as long as you split it up. But it takes the 3 counterinsurgency bombardment points to knock each one out. I placed the units and paid for them, but I haven't rolled them yet. But I'm just gonna do it because what the hell? I gotta slow down that air power somehow. And for that, we used the Guatemalan plane and a bunch of FDN planes, all great for counterinsurgency. These slow rotary planes just passing over, hunting down things and doing some bombing. So that negated everything at the cost of planes that I really couldn't use for much else, as far as I can tell. Yeah, these guys could be used for a bombing mission, whatever, It's 8 points of bombardment, It's really not a lot. Now Nicaragua's got to decide if they're going to launch an air mission. We're facing a much, much uglier situation at this time because of these bases up there, which are holding the U.S. Air Force planes, which can cause me some serious harm. And I didn't get my reinforcements for the last couple turns. They failed. And I kind of think that I'm just not going to do the air engagement. I'm going to save that for when I'm within range of Messiah. I actually assume that the only way I'm going to break the Honduran army is through the sweat and blood of my ground troops. And there aren't a lot of Honduran troops, which is the big deal and why you might need to bring the US forces in. Attempts at a slower type of reduction begin. You know, not getting any big gains, but we don't need big gains, we just need gains. The question is, what can the air power alone do to stop us? And that's an interesting question. So there's a couple of factors in play here. Unfortunately, because we're on the offensive and we're outside of the Messiah detection range, interception's not terribly easy. So bombing runs can be made against this shit. Some of it's got anti-aircraft capabilities, which will help a lot. If I wanted to make strikes of some sort, for whatever reason, inside Nicaragua itself, inside the Messiah range, then the Nicaraguan planes can come up and fly. Now, the reason I might not want to do this is most of these US planes, maybe all of them, have, I think all of them, have bombardment capability. So I might as well just break up this attack and make it as messy as possible for the Sandinistas to move forward there. The other thing is, I don't really have anything I can do by blowing up these SAMs and stuff. I don't have the troops to go forward. Breaking this shit up is more important. There's a bonus in the air in going into Messiah. And one of the big factors, one of the things we saw, even though the Nicaraguan Air Force was much, much stronger than the Honduran one, it still had to kind of work hard to get planes in. Why? Not because there's any great advantage to defense, but because whatever attack you send is perhaps facing, is possibly facing the entirety of the defensive air power. What the hell is this? Oh my God, that's a big stack of shit that showed up there. Many colors, whatever. Anyway, that factor is kind of interesting. It means you really need overwhelming air superiority to be able to do significant number of attacks. So what we saw was, Nicaragua slipping in and making attacks on the edges where they were outside of detection range. Well, that doesn't happen when you're looking at a 10 hex detection range around Messiah, around the AWACS, which is why, Nicaragua can't possibly afford to attack right now. But also, great. I could send one big mission in to go blow something up in Nicaragua, but then that's a lot of firepower that I'm neglecting to throw in to break up the army here. So as we move into the Allied turn, I think that's where we're going. Really not seeing any advances by the Communists right now. And I honestly, if America can stop this without sending troops in, I am all for that. So I am not going up to that third intervention level unless I start feeling like I'm forced to. Which is kind of an interesting situation. You can see the politics of this leading up where it's like, Honduras has been invaded, the capital's besieged. Why aren't Marines going in? What's going on here? And then if it falls, there'll be all these accusations about it. But on the other hand, both the president and Congress in this case are dovish, and the military is as dovish as it gets, which is to say, and I think their values are mistaken there. I think there was no one, I think in this period the military was very dovish, perhaps more so than even Congress, because of the lessons of Vietnam, etc. They've gotten burned, and probably would not want to get involved in something like this until it became absolutely necessary. All right, time for another break. Before I go on a full break or whatever, just can't stop chattering with my friends. This way in real life too, where I'll stand outside for 2 hours talking to someone. Someone I'm comfortable talking with, which is not random people who I seem to somehow drive away immediately. But this was a very, very light turn for Nicaragua now that the air power has shifted. And it really kind of highlights, even when I'm making this pretty massive assault going forward, that's bigger than anything that the Allies are doing, although nobody's doing much on the ground anymore. There's this, wow, I'm spending like 90% of my playtime on the air game. And that really is, I fear, the truth about this game. And it's also the truth about Gulf Strike, and a similar sort of way, I think the fleet games is it feels more like you're worrying more about the air operations, and it makes sense. It's just I'm not a wargamer to be an operational air wargamer. That's just never been where I aim for, and it's kind of where I feel with this is like I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing what draws me into gaming so much happening in this game, no matter what. And it's part of my grump. There's not a whole hell of a lot the Allies can do. We're pushing forces forward to help defend this last airport. We're pretty sure Tegucigalpa line is going to fall. I mean, this unit is just doomed, and there's not much I can do to save it. And it's just not worth it. It's a speed bump at this point. It's going to be gone forever. It's an infantry. Or it's not an infantry, it's an engineer. But I'm putting my reinforcements out. I've got reserve units coming up to fill the main line in that I'm going to have to defend. And we're up to the air phase, and now it's time to bomb the shit out of Nicaraguan stuff. And it's kind of tricky, to tell you the truth, because it's on a per counter basis. So I kind of have to pick my targets. I've got so many planes available. There's not much that Nicaragua can do about it. They have an air base here, Air Group 5. I don't know if that has an EW on it. It does. One of the things, so it can actually intervene in stuff. One of the things in this game is you have an EW while it's, in the available slot, but you lose the EW range as soon as you launch it. And there's some exceptions to that, things like the CIA EW, obviously Messiah, AWACS, which just sit up in the air and constantly provide you with a large screen. But yeah, this is not going to be trivial because I got lots and lots of planes, not as many as the Nicaraguans do, but enough that since I'm not making attacks for the most part. I got a couple. This one, not much I can do about because I got a stupid anti-aircraft gun there that I don't want to deal with. But other than that, I'm just basically picking bombing targets. One nice thing is I might be able to get fairly heavy payloads and just destroy units. Damage units rather than 1 or 2 in 6 chance of damaging them. I may have a more significant chance if I throw enough firepower in. But you got to do an analysis on the chart. Yeah. So 3 to 5 bombardment, that's got a 1/3 chance of doing a hit, right? I double that, and I've got a significantly better chance. But how much more do I have to go, right? And then also that chance gets reduced if there's terrain, which there usually is. This is not pretty stuff to bomb in. Maybe foolishly, I used up my air attacks, the hexes that I can avoid anti-aircraft in fire. I've been rotating them, but whatever. It's not effective enough. In enemy territory, the Sandinista units that don't have anti-aircraft, I've been bombing, and I used up all those hexes with my El Salvadorian and Honduran planes, and now I got my U.S. planes, and the question I have is, do I want to, and I've done very little damage, of course, do I want to challenge units that get an anti-aircraft? Let's check my bonuses. First of all, I'll be getting a -2 from the AWACS. Within 3 hexes of an EW, yeah. And I could bring an EW with me. So I can make it almost impossible for the anti-air to hit me. In addition, I could use incendiary bombs, which will give me a +2 on the chart. And I'll really be able to break up the Nicaraguan advance with that. I have a fair number of incendiaries, I think. It looks like 8 of them. Cluster bombs and smart bombs aren't going to be terribly helpful here, if I recall correctly. So yeah, I think I'm going to go after their real units. The other option would be to bomb the shit out of this stuff and let the FDN start dealing with that. But yeah, I'm able to evade the regular ground unit EW chance. In fact, the AWACS alone is enough to prevent it, if it weren't for this EW here, which has some of the hexes covered, one of which I want to go into, but I have EW within range as well, so I cancel that out too. Yeah. Pretty effective. I was able to do 3 steps with 3 stacks of 10, basically. One of which, I used incendiaries with 2 of them. One of them I did not. They all hit, I think, and doing some definite harm. You know, I mean, maybe not enough to stop Tegucigalpa from falling, but enough to really kind of force the communists to regroup. And if I can stop them, I don't think I want to push in with troops. Limited success everywhere. We took this, but over here, you know, we did another step loss. That's it. It's a hard fight down there, but, you know, clear that out, and then we move on to the next one, you know, and then we get kind of a victory condition if we're able to destroy whatever the Femlin and Erp and whatever are. So yeah, got no reserve, not disbanding anything, la la la, everything's home. We got reinforcements, some more of these Honduran units are coming in. Gonna look where they come. I think no, I think they gotta come in a supply source, so we're talking back there. Well, I've been doing something wrong. Not surprising. I ran across this and started looking for the rules for it. This is just a placeholder to say, hey, I got some more points coming in. I think they're actually allied points, but I started looking at US, expecting more US reinforcements. But remember back here where I'm using the US intervention levels, and as I put units down, that's not what's supposed to happen. So on the first turn, all of the Air Force stuff was supposed to come in, and a carrier group in the location of my choice. And then the 4th turn would be this other carrier group that I've put off till the 8th. So I'm just going to keep going with what I went with instead of following these rules. But there are actually rules that spell out when the forces come in. My feeling is that they're coming in faster than they should, and that's actually a problem, and that they come in, you know, if we look here at intervention level 1, reinforcements come in on game turns 2, that's the Air Force ones, they come in to begin with when you upgrade, along with the carrier group, and on game turn 8 is when the additional forces come in. Well, if you look here, another carrier group that looks like, right? Wait a minute. This is the carrier group. The A-10, so A second A-10 comes in, which is my game turn 8 reinforcements. They've got them coming in on 4, which is to say that if the U.S. was more prepared, they would come in more slowly. That may be the intention of the designer. He is military and might realize that, yep, we had plans for this. Therefore, we'll be slower. I'm not sure, but it does seem a little weird to me that if you were already at intervention level 1, ready to go, and not trying to boost it up on the shoestrings, that your planes actually come in more slowly. And I assume the other reinforcements too. And that just seems like a crock to me. So what I'm looking for is what this marker means, and I think that's going to be here with preparedness level 4. And this is game turn 7. 10 insurgency command points. And that'll make up for some of what I spent. Remember, I was around 75 before, but there's also not much that the communists are able to do about my insurgency points so far. So, I haven't really lost anything. And the U.S. is not going to increase its intervention for the reasons that I discussed. Now, there's one thing that the communists kind of have left they could do. They could start spewing chemical weapons, which could increase tensions, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing for them, and could induce the U.S. to bring troops on board. But on the other hand, that might not be a wise idea. You're not going to use them effectively against U.S. troops anyway, but we might be able to get a little bit more oomph out of attacking the Hondurans, but it's only a little bit. It's not a really major thing unless you're cutting off a retreat with the persistent chemical weapons. And again, to me, that's escalating things, looking like a bad guy in the world opinion. The game doesn't reflect that at all. It just gives you really the military options with some vague effect on political things, but I mean, it would just be a tensions increase from the Soviet point of view. But again, I just don't know if I see it. And although it might be interesting to see the U.S. forces come in as an exercise, it really would be me taking one for the team, as it were. And I've already taken enough on this game, I think. I know that the game is not going to get completed if I don't start moving ahead on it. Well, took a full day off, and then today it feels like the same damn thing's happening where I just don't want to do this shit. You know, maybe not any game, but definitely not this one. And I don't know. So I convinced myself to come in and start doing the ground movement, and I think I got most of it done. I gotta figure out this mess, which shouldn't be too hard, except that maybe I want to expand the front, you know, maybe push against these guys or something, and try to get further up. The problem, of course, with that is I can only apply air power in certain areas. Speaking of which, I'm beginning to think my helicopters are, you know, just a waste here. Let's get them within the Messiah range so that, well, they can fly anywhere. They're not going to get caught. They don't get intercepted unless they enter an enemy hex. But down here, there's no air support. Of course, there will be by then. Fairly soon, next turn, we're going to see the U.S. second carrier group come in. And that's going to be in the Pacific, or in the Caribbean. And then at that point, I'm basically stripped. I have no capacity to fly those helicopters anywhere if I don't have, I mean, they can perform defensive air support. The helicopter capabilities, but they really can't do anything under the umbrella. Anyway, I started pushing some pieces around, and I just start feeling like, God, I don't even want to do the ground movement. That's pretty easy. It's hard to get any excitement going when you know what's ahead, and that it's basically just either more schlag with very little payoff or whatever, or leaving. Pushed the turn pretty quickly up to ground movement, and then kind of said, well, I don't know, and did a half-hearted move on it without really tackling these, which is where I came in. And now, where I thought I was before was at insurgency placement, but by cleaning up some of the ground movement situations, I'm a little better off here, but nothing significant changed. And yeah, I'm going to pull those helicopters out, which is why you see some bases abandoned. Those have to come out, and just try to, gain what ground I can against Honduras without air support. Very soon, the Sandinista army is just going to be stomped, and at that point, I can see it coming. I could see it coming since the beginning. And the only thing I can't see coming is the whole, hey, does the U.S. have enough time to destroy the Nicaraguan army if they intervene, without getting World War III, without the War Powers Act pulling them out. But there's an interesting simulation here and everything. The problem is that the actual military situation, which is what these games cover, isn't all that exciting. It didn't get pushed because everyone more or less knew they couldn't win the decisive victory that they needed. Nicaragua invading Honduras, they'd get stopped. And the question then, well, would the U.S. want to intervene with forces in Nicaragua? Maybe they would be triggered to such, but they aren't going to do it without some kind of trigger like this, right? And that's the whole thing. It's like it was mainly about the situation was mainly one in which the insurgency operations took the center stage, and this game doesn't worry about the strategic side of counterinsurgency or anything. It's just a tactical side. Did you win, this month's fight where where everybody was ramped up and ready to go, or somebody was ramped up and ready to go, or whatever. And to me, that's just such a narrow focus with no real conclusion possible. And a scenario like this that looks at something a little more extreme is still no great conclusion is going to come of it unless they throw it to World War III. If we start using chemical weapons and intervening as hard as we can and trying to breach every border that we can and whatever, well, then something interesting happened. But it's just such a small slice, and again, such a schlag going through it. With El Salvador leaving all their towns and cities, there's room for a big insurgency to show up all over that. Now, it doesn't really make much difference. The planes are still going to come in and they're still going to wipe it out. But it reduces the cost of the insurgency. And it's kind of weird because probably, especially in the city or whatever, unless that's happening in the outskirts, air power is not really the way this is going to be handled. And again, the game, although it goes into a lot of detail, I don't know, I don't know how accurate some of the edge cases are like this. You're supposed to garrison your towns, but it's not that big a deal to not. And I guess it's time to find me some area units to handle that. Tempted to use the CIA helicopter in conjunction with the El Salvadorian, but the truth of the matter is, I want the firepower of the attack helicopter in the ground combat. It's too valuable to use otherwise. The bombardment factors that I have are not that great, so I sent some Hondurans to take out the last one. But yeah, they're all gone, It's just how it works, and I don't think there are any I want to disband. I don't think I have damage on any insurgents right now. And now it's to the fun part of the game, or the meat of the game, the air missions. I don't know if I want to do much. Again, I'm within range of that AWACS with most stuff, but there are places like over here where my planes can operate. With impunity. I'm not in range of the carrier, so anything that takes off here isn't just going to get intercepted. It would have been close anyway. I could have probably protected it with the SAMs or whatever. But yeah, it looks like the Nicaraguan Air Force is pretty much going to concentrate over here to the south. Perform ground bombardment. I'm counting on killing some ARDA units. They'll probably try to recrop up. I kept my air forces pretty much in place. The only thing I did was the close air support. I mean, I would have had maybe one shot on like a 6 or something like that against either something here or something back here. And I just don't see it. I don't see this valuable at all. I've pretty much conceded the air game to the Allies at this point. That puts me to the ground combat. I got basically 3 attacks I'm doing. 2 of them without any air support, but that's okay. I'm not particularly hurt by the defensive air support. Yeah, they broke up a couple of my units. I shifted things around to some extent, but that's it. The Tegucigalpa line has fallen. Both hexes, I wasn't sure that was going to happen. Had to move in because, why? So the bad part of moving in is that I lose some air defense. The good part of it is, I don't know what. I just captured Tegucigalpa and I get to get the points for it, I guess. I don't know. I seem to think that there was a reason I had to move in. Well, one thing it did was it scared the planes away. So now we've got a bunch of planes there. I accidentally returned someone there who should not have gone there. It was obviously in threat. So I moved that one to rebase to here too. So I've got stuff up here at this airport. That's within the AWACS range, great, and I'll be able to do shit from there. But, you know, yeah, Honduras is getting overrun. There's not enough U.S. stuff on the board to prevent that yet. There's probably not enough stuff on the board to turn that around. The problem is, if we wanted to commit the Marines, just saying, anytime in the near future, there's still a lot of Nicaraguans in there, and I can bomb the shit out of them without War Powers Act coming into play. And then once the army is damaged enough, then I could bring them in. Still probably can't. At intervention 3, there's probably not enough that'll come in to turn this around. The real question is, do I have enough stuff to prevent Honduras from falling? If Honduras falls completely, like if it can be conquered by the Nicaraguans or close to it, I feel like even if my victory points don't match, I've kind of failed as the U.S. and have allowed something to happen that I just should not. That I've created a much more ugly situation than historically was there. Again, I don't want to play this solely by, oh, here are the victory points that were assigned, because it is enough of a simulation that I feel like the actions and reactions should be proportional and situational. And yeah, Tegucigalpa falling, that might be enough to boost the U.S. intervention up. In fact, that may actually be an event that rolls to increase it. But more importantly, it's something that as the U.S. player, as the president, whatever, I may not be willing to accept, especially if I don't think this line can hold. You know, if I'm going to fall back another set of spaces, back to where the actual U.S. troops are, we got some real problems. And, you know, in particular, we don't have this terrain break there. Bad stuff starts to happen in terms of U.S., you know, world opinion in terms of allowing an ally to just collapse this way. It's not like, Europe would be, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't send troops into Honduras. No, it's more like Taiwan looking and saying, well, that's how they treat their allies. Better start cozying up with the people that are threatening us. So yeah, I mean, to some degree, if you don't intervene where your allies are threatened, you do suffer a penalty for it. At least if you want to maintain a position as the world superpower and all that. Anyway, I take that kind of, call it a role-playing aspect or whatever. And I feel like this game actually lends itself well to that, if only, I was more interested in what it was about. Turns out this isn't the first time I've screwed up and missed a cause. So let's start running through these. So we got the first time a communist unit captured Tegucigalpa. We need a chart for this. We might be seeing some higher increases in tensions than I thought. This is an A. Okay, we went up by 2 for that. U.S. intervention's up to 2. It already was there, so I'm not getting anything free for that. The first time communist ground units used chemical weapons, I did not use that. Each time a communist the first time a Cuban or Soviet air unit is involved in air combat with a U.S. unit, we had that. The big air fight involved Soviet and U.S. units, so that's another A type. That's another 2. Okay, we're up to U.S. intervention 3, which means I could start bringing ground forces in without paying a penalty in terms of the World War III. Each time a communist regular unit enters a hex totally within an allied country, we did that already. The first time a communist regular exits the south map edge, we didn't do that. The first time a Cuban infantry unit is involved in ground combat with a U.S. unit, no. The instant that the Cuban mechanized, the moment U.S. Congress makes a declaration of war, gosh, how does that happen? I think that happens off the War Powers Act. They could actually, Allied unit captures Managua, U.S. totally within Nicaragua. Capturing the FSLN government or treasury each time the allied player voluntarily increases U.S. intervention. Okay, so this is where we're at, and we're at a position where the U.S. could intervene for free. Given a dovish president, I'm not sure I would put ground troops in, but I had absolutely no problem boosting up the air intervention. I think even our most dovish presidents would have considered very strongly that position. Not sure. But, okay, so that puts us on the U.S. side, or the Allied side, and it's time for me to try to build together a defensive line. Now, part of my intention is also, I've had kind of this goal of, look, I think I can stop the Sandinistas with air power alone, so I still may not throw the troops in if I choose not to. We may see how much I kill with air power alone, and how effective I am with the Salvadorians, and how much they're able to help defend that line, etc. Because I think we can stop Nicaragua here. It is one hell of a stain, though, to have lost Tegucigalpa. There wasn't much I could do about it. I couldn't hold a line this far forward by any means. And only now am I starting to get the kind of troops where I can say, yeah, I think I might be able to hold a line with all the air power that I'm throwing in and everything. But we shall see. Over on the artist side, that crapped out and nothing happened. But we're much more excited by what happened over there. I didn't think that would be as effective. I didn't realize how few steps were left in Tegucigalpa. Allied ground operations, we're making a big push here. Now this is basically going to be an attritional battle because the Sandinistas have a couple of decent infantry units there. And I know about that. I need to grind them down. I need to get them out of my backfields and start moving, the threat this way. This isn't doing anything, but it has to go. That can't be allowed to remain there. There's an air base, if I recall correctly. There's the anti-air, which is preventing the airplanes from making proper strikes on that. I may use U.S. planes with range strike to clear that anti-air gun out of there and then sail in. But I still would have to then deal with, well, I could do standoff and do multiple standoff actions with a single standoff point, if I understand the rules correctly, as long as I fly it as one big mission. So that would be a possibility. I could wait for my B-52s to come and just bomb it from far, far away. I'm not sure if I can, because again, it's a population, there's some population there. However, there's not even a town, so it is probably safe. I'd have to look up the specifics, you know. And again, not having all of that right at my fingertips of my brain is part of the problem with this, because you do have to make all those kinds of plannings. And instead, what I'm just kind of planning on is, you know, I can take losses and rebuild insurrection units. And let the Nicaraguans use up their air force. If they use up too much of their air power on that, well, then the strikes could start coming in. Building up the line here around, what are we called here? Comayuga. To strengthen that. Again, this is a major goal. If the Sandinistas can break through there, the world has taken another hit in terms of Honduras being able to hold out, to the extent that, yeah, maybe I do need to commit. Now, again, the way I'm playing the rules, there's a longer turnaround on between the point where I say, yeah, let's commit the U.S. forces to when they're actually available to land. And the timer doesn't start ticking until after they're actually on, you know, boots on the ground. And then, yeah, my other attack is continuing to try to destroy the Yerp, because whatever. And after that, we just go on our bombing campaign and see how much of the Sandinista army I can break down. And in a sense, that's more important than this attritional attack. This is really a sideshow. I think I'm just better off throwing my air power against the regular Nicaraguan army that's out there. I think the bombardment campaign got us a couple of stops. One Cuban unit. Remember, my U.S. units, I keep forgetting, I don't really have to worry about ground unit AA. My AWACS wipes that shit out. So I was being kind of careful not to, when honestly, yeah. But I picked off one of these things with the FDN or whatever. And I got the Cuban unit, and I think that's about it. I may have gotten one more, one regular infantry as well. But, you know, I'm just not getting the kind of attrition from the firepower. And I mean, I'm throwing massive amounts of firepower, like an entire Alpha strike hits a hex. It doesn't do anything. It's like, oh shit, whatever. So that will put me on the ground combats, and again, the attritional, and then this thing, which I think we might win with that big +3 modifier, helicopters, all that. And that'll free up El Salvador to move up and try to start reducing the fortification on the border. So what's going on with these things where you're seeing, you know, an insurgency command area wiped out? Nothing that impressive. That is representing a temporary military headquarters for that insurgency. So like, if I wipe out Femlin EARP, that doesn't mean El Salvador is in the clear, you know. As long as the general geopolitics is what it is, those things will rebuild. So what these scenarios show is, in some cases, not this one necessarily, but what things like the Revolution Without Borders scenario shows, which is really just the Nicaragua and El Salvador insurgency forces fighting against the government forces, is that here's what happens when the insurgency builds up for a campaign and the military is having to deal with it, you know. And as we can see here, where you have this full military buildup, yeah, I mean, El Salvador is destroying their insurgency. But you don't generally have a full military buildup to deal with the insurgency, because it's not the lasting solution, as we saw with a game like Vietnam. It's not the real counterinsurgency. All you're seeing is the effects of this one massive operation. And yeah, if the military decides to go in and clear an area, it can, and that doesn't necessarily prevent the same insurgency from having gone underground and come back up. Anyway. And we got the lucky die roll here. This is one I thought would just be an easy cakewalk to wipe through. Basically, I'm way up here on the chart's end. Well, maybe not. No, I was up around here. But, I didn't have that many pluses. There was a chance. I had to do 2 steps to get it. It's gone. Problem resolved. Over here, though, I was surprised in the other direction. The big Nicaraguan defense, 2-1, but I'm in the clear, and there wasn't much going for them. They took a couple of step losses, one of which because of the retreat, and that looks like it's going to fall next turn pretty easily. And not much that the Sandinistas can do about it. Overall, so far it looks like a pretty good turn for the Allied forces. The only problem being, there's this phalanx of Sandinistas coming in, and depending on how far it breaks into Honduras and what my reactions are, what's it going to be viewed as, the addition of a bunch of El Salvadorian and other Allied forces, Guatemala, Mexico, that's going to help. Costa Rica's already fallen, though. Not much you can do about that, really. So, yeah. What's left? Rebasing. Get my unit back, and as far as I'm concerned, we can send this up. I have been debating, do I stop here? You don't know how much I want to. The problem is, I haven't found the interesting answer yet, which is, is air power in itself enough to dent the Nicaraguans to the point where they can't overcome a fairly weak defensive force? So far, it hasn't been. But as they have to expose themselves to attack in this rough terrain, whatever, it might be a little different. And once I break through that line, then what? Well, then it becomes interesting in the other things I'm talking about. But I still haven't answered the question of, can I just stop them cold? If I could have gotten a few more hits each turn from the air power, but it's just not there. Air power alone doesn't win a war, right? Interesting things are going to happen, though, as this comes forward. This is a huge force in terms of a lot of stacked units. But what it can really do is it puts a stress on the Nicaraguans. As I clear out things and empty out the back areas that it's in, then I can move towards Nicaragua itself, towards the heartland of Nicaragua, and put enough of a threat there that these guys just can't keep operating. I can't have this huge phalanx moving forward. Anyway, I'm going to send it up. I'm going to keep trying to continue for what it's worth. But it's not a lot of fun. But I still haven't answered all the questions. And maybe I've gone further in this game of it than ever before. I don't know. I have the feeling this is probably about as long as I ever played any of these scenarios. Because I don't think these games ever... I think they appealed to me intellectually more than they did, in that sort of visceral sense. And I gotta say, the same is true with Vietnam, but Vietnam does kind of catch my heart and make me want to do that. And I push through that further in general. Then I think I face this, or the Fleet games, or Gulf Strike, or Fleshpot Gonads, or whatever other modern games, victory games came up with that were, ultra detailed. In this case, I think, a really great simulation of something I don't want to be dealing with.